Hi, Stephen.
Hey, good to see you.
You too. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Another close of a week, so
It's
getting
always
ready.
fun. Um, so last time the main topic was your mother and how
Yeah,
she was a very angry person.
yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Like how she expressed her anger?
Sure. My mother was an alcoholic, so a lot of her expressions of anger came out through that path. When she was drinking, when she hadn't drank for a long time, everything was very temperamental, instantaneous, and sudden. As a kid, I never felt like I had any sort of footing in the house. I wasn't safe. Um, in fact, I spent the majority of my childhood, I'd come home from school and I'd go upstairs and lock my door to my room, and then I wouldn't come out until we had to go to dance that day or whatnot. And it was never like, it was always a preemptive uh, thing because I was just waiting for her to explode next. That's what that anger was like. It was unpredictable and always random in its nature.
When you were a kid, were you able to express your emotions openly with her?
Oh no, no, not at all. In fact, part of my childhood, I certainly if I expressed anything. It was later on in my childhood, and it was probably right around the point of like my teenage years, maybe 15, 16, once I was taller. And then that's the only sort of expressions that I did have were kind of pushbacks. I would stand in opposition to the things that she thought or believed, not because I believed the opposite, but because I wanted to upset her. So the only time I ever really expressed feeling was in a very immature and unhealthy teenage pushback against my parental authority. But before that, actual honest emotion, no, it was withheld constantly because I was always afraid that if I said or did something wrong, it would be a catalyst to lead her to explode.
Okay, that makes sense. You were afraid to express yourself in fear that she would retaliate.
Yes.
Okay. When you were a teenager, you said that it was you weren't really expressing your emotions, more like you were just trying to get at your mom.
Yes.
Do you remember a time when you were a kid that you were able to express your emotions openly with her or somebody else?
Hmm. I don't remember a lot of my childhood. Um, in fact, I've with my wife and in my current relationship, I've done a lot of work, like uh, Genneagram work and different things, trying to like trace lineage and understand where some of my patterns come from. Um, and in that process, I realized that I I really honestly do not have a lot of solid memories from my childhood, and I don't know why. My assumption is that because the household was so unstable, that there was not a lot that I could. Um, but perhaps I distanced myself, mentally or disengaged, disassociated in those moments. But I really, my memory starts essentially the summer I left from high school. Outside of that, there's like significant events that I remember, but it was never at home, never with family. So as far as emotion goes, when is the earliest that I could say that I expressed or felt like I was safe to express emotion? Um, I would say that it was probably, I want to say it'd probably be my sophomore year. And it was when I went away. Every year we had summer camps in dance. And I got accepted to the Rock School of Ballet in Philadelphia. And I went away for the summer and had a fantastic time there and was able to express things I felt with um, uh, different peers at the summer camp where they could hear my emotions and we could express them openly. Um, I think that's probably the first time I can think of.
Okay, that makes sense. So you were able to be more open with people who you didn't really know because you didn't have to be afraid of the blow up that could happen.
Correct.
Okay, and your wife now, do you guys communicate openly? I think you
Oh,
mentioned that you did.
yes, always. We strive to live a very honest, open, and transparent life in everything that we do, and I think that's because both of us come from parents of a generation that was very shut down emotionally and dismissive to the ideas of emotion and expression and whatnot. And so when I was lucky enough to find her, um, I found someone who uh, was willing to be sincere, which is a rarity in the world these days. And so that's always been our focus of everything. You know, we all have emotions and we share them freely with each other.
That's great. I do have a question. Feel free to not answer it if it makes you uncomfortable.
Sure.
Do you remember or can you describe how you felt when your mom would blow up or just become irrationally angry?
Sure. Very much it's a reaction of oh no, not safe. I'm afraid. I'm in trouble. Kind of all mixed in one. I could my body reaction. I can remember physically how it would make me feel, like a tightening of everything pulling into the center of who I was. That reaction to it is very vivid. Kind of like it's, it's like freeze in a way, like fight or flight, freeze and
Kind of like
fawn.
just like a pressure.
Everything just closes in, and it's like you're taking a cap and putting it back on a champagne bottle that's exploding. And so it's like try just and if I can just hold on to it, the explosion will stop. That's what it felt like.
And then can you explain how your anger feels when you are in traffic?
Um, Loose. There's no the opposite of probably what it felt like being a recipient of my mother's anger. Someone comes at me, it's like I'm the volcano, like immediately, and and then once it happens, then I move on from there. The remaining effect is like a slow burn that just stays inside. And it never really grows or explodes again, but it just holds on forever. That just like fire of that moment,
Okay. Sorry for the back and forth, but
which is fine.
when your mom got mad, did it kind of just come and then just go, or did it kind of simmer out, kind of like yours does?
She was very she was hot and cold constantly. And so there'd be a massive explosion to the point that she'd, throw a dish or like something that abrupt and abrasive. And then immediately a minute later, it's a normal day. And there was no emotion or expression. There was no peter out. There was no I think I remember times where it was an extended anger, but it was more it wasn't simmering. It was certainly like like little eruptions happening constantly until the big eruption took place.
Okay, that makes sense. Were you ever physically or emotionally abused?
Yes, constantly.
Constantly. Okay. How do you deal with conflict or things not going as planned, like with your stepson or your wife?
Um, Conflict, things not going as planned. I like conflict, in the sense that um, I know people avoid it in the sense like, oh, everything's gonna be mad. But friction produces heat. The idea that um, if we come from two different positions and there's a conflict, there's going to be an outcome, and that has the potential to be something even better. I hear from one person, they hear my opinion, we work together through that conflict, and that conflict is what produces success. That's kind of how I look at conflict. It's uncomfortable, a lot, at different times it's very uncomfortable. But I approach it, especially with my family, but with anybody, through a position of humility. I don't go into conflict, even if I think I'm right. I don't go into the conflict thinking that I'm not wrong in some way. It could be that I was correct about this situation, but how I'm presenting it is wrong. That's kind of how I approach conflict, with with anybody, my wife or son included.
So it can be kind of uncomfortable, but then it's calming knowing that you're going to get a good result from in the end.
Yes, yes. Or knowing that we're going to get a result. It's not all the time. I don't always get my way ever, you know.
Yep.
But I know that I know that working through that moment produces something, and I'm always excited to see what that result is because it takes us out of that moment of conflict.
Yeah. What about when they make you angry? How does that usually go?
Um, Well, we talk through it. It wasn't always that way. It used to be, we get angry and we fall back into patterns, from our old life. We get quiet and walk away because then the situation, doesn't get worse. Except that I'm just extending it to the next point in time. But now that we've, worked with each other and lived with each other for such a long period of time, we've got to know each other, and we're more open with, this is how I feel. I accept that. This is how you feel, and I understand that. And even in that anger, um, the goal is the other side, always, because just being angry at each other doesn't change how I feel about her, as a person. It just means I'm angry with the situation. The problem's the problem. She's not the problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's better always to deal with the conflict in a calm way than getting angry and blowing up. I do have one more question.
Yeah.
It's been about a week since we talked. Has there been any more incidents, like in traffic or in general, that have caused like the anger buildup?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. And it's been a rather stressful week, for me, not just at work, but at the theater. There's been a lot of interpersonal conflict that's taken place. And even through that, I didn't hold on to that, anger. If anger arrived in those situations, it wasn't held, wasn't explosive. Um, it may have been there, but it wasn't like the vehicles when I get cut off and it just becomes overwhelming.
Okay. Well, I think that's all for today. Unless there's anything that you extra you wanted to talk about or bring up.
Not at this time.
All right. Well, then, if you choose to make it another appointment, sorry. Next week we'll get more into some details and I can share with you like some of the things that I've noticed.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And then I'll see you next week.
All right, I'll see you then.
Bye. Okay. Any feedback?
Um, I thought it was a good, like, authentic conversation. I feel like your questions were good. Like they kept the I kept the conversation alive in a way that I think felt alive to Steven. I feel like there were like a couple times where I feel like I would have double tapped on something he said. Like you kind of ask him if he was emotionally and physically abused, and he said yes, and then you kind of moved on. And I feel like that could have been a time to like slow up and see what how that abuse, what exactly that abuse was, and whether Steven still thinks, you know, he scary carries scars from that, and whether those scars are the things that are causing him, to punch his steering wheel when somebody cuts him off. Just stuff like that. Um, but yeah, that was my only comment.
I agree with what he said, just kind of like slowing down and like diving deeper into what he's saying. But other than that, I thought your questions were really good and it gave like good insight into his past and like he really opened up. So that was good.
Yeah.